In every cold case, the evidence sits and waits. A faded photograph, a cryptic note, a single strand of hair. These clues are locked away, sometimes for decades, waiting for a new key, a fresh perspective. Welcome to the Evidence Locker. I'm your host, Shay. Each week we unlock a new file, examining the artifacts of an unsolved case. We'll piece together the timeline, explore the theories, and focus on the one piece of evidence that could hold the key. If only we could see it in the right light. The episode this week looks a little different than our previous ones. One of our listeners reached out to me on our Instagram after last week's episode to ask for our help. Her biological mother's murder has been unsolved now for almost 5 decades, and the police are nowhere closer to finding her killer. Krissi Atkinson has been her mom's warrior, reaching out to numerous podcasts, newspapers, anyone that will get her mom's story out there, because someone, somewhere, has to know something, and that someone may be you. Wilma June Nissen was born October 19, 1954, in San Francisco, California. Her childhood was characterized by severe neglect, abuse, and instability. When Wilma was 8, she and her younger sister Mona were abandoned by their mother. Mona was deaf and mute. The girls were left in the care of their father, who reportedly subjected them to severe abuse and neglect, including locking them in a closet for extended periods when he went to work, denying them access to food, water, or a bathroom. After their father lost his job, the family became homeless, living in a car in the Los Angeles County area. During this time, Mona was confined to the car's trunk, while Wilma, at age 8 or 9, was sent to wander the streets alone to find food. Thankfully, by age 10, Wilma and Mona were removed from their father's custody by the Child Protective Services in 1964. Upon entering the foster care system, Wilma lacked basic skills, reportedly unable to read, write, or even properly use a fork. She lived with multiple foster families, including Maxine and Marshall Holt in Anaheim, California, who provided a brief period of stability until health issues on Maxine's part forced her relocation. Her final placement was with Alice and Vince Haas in Seal Beach, California. Wilma disappeared on her 18th birthday in 1972. Leaving foster care and embarking on a troubled adult life marked by instability and frequent moves. She resorted to sex work as a means of survival, a profession to which she was allegedly introduced by her first husband, Ronald Eugene Wellington. Wilma married Wellington in Hollywood, California, in August 1973. During this period, she was arrested multiple times for solicitation. She gave birth to 3 children, 2 sons, Michael Pizarro Jr. in 1974 and Donald Wellington Jr., also in 1974, and a daughter, Crystal Joy Irvin, known as Krissi, in 1977. Due to instability and poverty, both sons were taken by CPS shortly after their births. Krissi, who was born in Long Beach, California in August 1977, was adopted shortly thereafter by Wilma's final foster parents, Alice and Vince Haas. After leaving her daughter, Wilma used aliases such as Amy Irvin, Amy Belt, Wilma Belt, or Amy Nissen. She spent a short time living in a camper in San Diego. In February 1978, Wilma left California for Atlanta, Georgia, traveling with 54-year-old Charles Inman Belt. They resided briefly at 582 Techwood Drive with Belt's mother, Juanita Belt. Charles Inman Belt was the last known person to see Wilma alive. Belt stated that Wilma left his mother's apartment without explanation after about 2 weeks, claiming that he thought she had hitchhiked back to Southern California. Investigators were unable to confirm the supposed return trip. Belt is currently believed to reside in Tijuana, Mexico. Investigators traced her movements from Atlanta to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where they believe she was working for an escort service known interchangeably as Playgirls or Playmates. Investigators have sought information regarding her whereabouts and activities between February and July 1978. Wilma's body was discovered in a roadside ditch in rural Lyon County, Iowa, near Rock Rapids and Highway 182 on the morning of October 4, 1978, by a 19-year-old telephone worker named Steve Hong, who was laying cable. The remains were severely decomposed, leading the finder to initially mistake the body for a mannequin. However, we all know it is never just a mannequin. Authorities arriving at the scene noted several disturbing details. First, the victim was clearly a young woman, and she was nude from the waist up. She was wearing light green denim pants that were pulled down around one leg, likely indicating sexual assault. She was also wearing knee-high white leather boots. Even more disturbing was that her feet had been tied together with a braided hemp rope. Investigators believe the rope was used to drag her body face down into the ditch, either from a vehicle or nearby location, indicating that she was killed elsewhere before being disposed of in the ditch. In addition, the lower jaw was completely missing and never found, and the majority of teeth in her top jaw were smashed out, with only 2 remaining teeth left in her skull. Given the advanced decomposition, the initial cause of death could not be determined, and she was classified as a Jane Doe. She was buried in Riverview Cemetery in Rock Rapids under the name Unidentified Female, 1978. For 27 years, the case remained cold. On January 31, 2006, the victim was finally identified through a breakthrough in fingerprint analysis. A laboratory technician in Des Moines matched her left thumbprint to a print card dating from a 1973 arrest for prostitution held by the LAPD. The victim was identified as Wilma June Nissen. Wilma's daughter, Krissi Atkinson, spent years searching for her biological mother. She learned the truth nearly 30 years later via a newspaper article reporting the identification of the Jane Doe. Following the identification, Lyon County Sheriff Blythe Biomendel pursued the case aggressively, placing the timeline of Wilma's life on his office wall and vowing to solve the homicide. He submitted information about her murder to the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, also known as VICAP, and sought the assistance of an FBI profiler. In September 2007, Wilma's remains were exhumed in the hopes of finding DNA evidence, particularly under her fingernails, given signs of a possible struggle, such as the dislocation of her right elbow. The fact that her pants and underwear were pulled down also suggested a possible sexual assault, which could have left DNA deposits. However, the exhumation proved challenging. Her casket was filled with water, preventing the successful collection of viable DNA, though a cause of death was privately determined. Samples of her clothing and the rope used to bind her feet were later sent to the FBI for testing. Later, around 2016, a private lab was able to successfully find and amplify a very small amount of DNA from evidence found at the scene. Unfortunately, this DNA was a mixed sample from multiple contributors and was deemed unhelpful to the investigation at the time, because amplified DNA often cannot be run through CODIS. Despite this, Wilma's daughter, Krissi, continues to urge authorities to authorize genetic genealogy testing, stating that refusal to utilize these modern tools remains a roadblock. The strongest and most commonly cited theory is that Wilma's murder is connected to her escort work in the Sioux Falls, northwest Iowa area. Authorities initially stated that the motive for Wilma's murder was robbery. They identified Sugar as a fellow escort or prostitute who was known to rob other women engaged in sex work. Police reportedly named 2 women, identified by the street names Sugar and Peaches, as potentially being responsible for Wilma's death. Law enforcement knows the identity and location of Sugar. However, despite being brought in numerous times for questioning, she denies any involvement. She has, however, reportedly failed 3 separate polygraph tests concerning the case. The identity and whereabouts of Peaches, described as an escort from Canada, remain unknown to law enforcement. Before her death, Wilma had traveled over 1,000 miles from Atlanta, Georgia, to the Sioux Falls, South Dakota area, where she was working for that escort service. Her daughter believes absolutely that Wilma, who did not have a car, met someone in Atlanta who convinced her to travel with them to Sioux Falls. The focus on local sex work points to the murder occurring shortly after her arrival and in connection with people in the immediate vicinity of Sioux Falls or northwest Iowa, where she was found. Investigators concluded that Wilma Nissen was not killed at the rural location near Rock Rapids, Iowa, where her body was found. Instead, the scene was likely a dumping ground for the remains. When found, Wilma was wearing boots, and her feet had been tied together with a braided hemp rope. Investigators deduced that the rope was not used for binding her during the attack in any way, but rather specifically to drag her body, after death, to the disposal area. The position of her arms, hands, and hair further suggested the body was deceased when dragged. Authorities believe that Wilma was killed and her body deposited in the ditch sometime between July and August 1978, perhaps 3 months before discovery on October 4, 1978. The condition of Wilma's body suggested a ferocious attack, possibly involving sexual violence. Her murder was characterized as extremely brutal and involved unusual damage to her face. Almost all of her top teeth were smashed out, and her lower jaw has never been recovered. Investigators have confirmed that the lower jaw was not missing due to wildlife. She was found partially nude, with her pants and underwear pulled down around one leg. The medical examiner noted a dislocation of her right elbow, which, coupled with the fact that her hands were free, led investigators to believe she had struggled significantly with her killer, potentially leaving DNA under her fingernails. The positioning of the clothing indicates a possible sexual act. Investigators speculated that the encounter may have started willingly before turning violent, or that it was a sexual assault from the beginning. This raised hopes for the collection of DNA evidence in relation to the assault. The inability to conclusively link the physical evidence to a suspect fuels an ongoing debate about the case status. Krissi strongly believes that the case is stalled because authorities refuse to allow a private lab to further analyze the amplified DNA or use newer methods, such as genetic genealogy, to either prove or rule out suspects like Sugar. She maintains the position that officials' repeated statements that the case is an active investigation ring hollow if investigative steps utilizing available technology are refused. Wilma's case remains open and unsolved, but her daughter, Krissi, maintains the Justice for Wilma June Nissen website dedicated to keeping her mother's case in the public eye and seeking justice. She advocates strongly for the application of genetic genealogy to the currently held amplified DNA evidence. Krissi has expressed deep frustration with the current state of the investigation, noting that investigators refuse to allow the DNA to be made more viable or to use it to rule suspects like Sugar in or out, often citing that it is an open, active investigation. She also noted that the dedicated reward and tip line section for her mother's case has been removed from the Lyon County Sheriff's website, raising concerns that the case has been deprioritized. The Lyon County Sheriff's Office continues to investigate, having received more than 1,700 tips since 2004. Lyon County offers a standing reward of $10,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Lyon County Sheriff's Office at 712-472-8300 or Crime Stoppers at 800-222-TIPS in order to remain anonymous. A full transcript of this episode, along with photos and links to the official tip lines, can be found at our website, The Evidence Locker Pod. Thank you for listening. Join us next time as we unlock another case file here at The Evidence Locker.